Hello, Leo. If you've landed here today, I want you to pause because what you're about to hear is not a coincidence. In fact, I believe you were meant to find this video. Something or someone has been guiding you to this exact moment. This is not just a horoscope. This is a spiritual transmission, a sacred conversation between you and the universe. And if your heart is beating a little faster right now or your body feels a subtle chill, then you already know something bigger is speaking. My name is Michelle, and welcome to Eternal Mindfulness, a space for seekers, intuitives, and old souls like you. Today's message is specifically for Leo, and I want to begin with a question. Have you ever felt like your life was quietly being sabotaged for years but couldn't explain how or why? This isn't paranoia. It's not imagination. There is an ancient energy at play here, one that your soul has sensed for decades, even if your conscious mind hasn't fully understood it until now. During a recent tarot session, I experienced something I've never felt before in all my years of spiritual work. A presence, gentle, grieving, insistent, entered the room. And I knew instantly, it was the spirit of someone's mother. She wasn't there by accident. She came with purpose. She came with truth. And she came for you. She showed me visions through the card symbols of sorrow, betrayal, energetic traps. She revealed that for over 20 years, a dark feminine force has been manipulating your energy from behind the scenes. This isn't just spiritual interference, it's a form of energetic theft, illusion, and emotional sabotage. And now, the time has come to see it clearly and reclaim your light. So if you felt stuck, exhausted, unseen, if you've had dreams you can't explain, if your relationships, finances, or health seem cursed or blocked, this may be why. But the universe has chosen this exact moment to lift the veil. Because now, Leo, you are ready. You have the strength, the fire, the divine courage to face this truth and transform it into power. This message is not about fear, it's about freedom. And what's coming next in this reading will shift everything. But before we go further, let me take a moment to express my deepest gratitude for your presence here. Every like, every comment, every subscription helps expand this sacred space and brings you deeper into the heart of the Eternal Mindfulness family. Your energy fuels this mission. Your attention activates this protection. And your belief makes it all real. So stay with me. What you're about to hear is emotional, intense, and divinely timed. And if something within you already knows this message was meant for you, then say it. Write in the comments. I claim my light. I am ready to be free. Let that be your first act of liberation. Now, Leo, what is it that brought you here today? Let's begin. When the first three cards fall, Nine of Swords, Queen of Swords reversed, and the Moon, there is no coincidence in the way they land. Their positions aren't just chance. They are choreography written by a force much older than this moment. And when those cards appeared, something in the air shifted. The candle flickered not from wind, but from presence. A deep presence. The kind that doesn't knock but simply arrives. That presence was her, your mother. Not in the form you once knew, but in an echo that speaks through intuition, memory, and the quiet sob that sometimes wells in your chest without explanation. Her grief is not sorrow for herself. It is sorrow for you. For the 20 years you have lived beneath a shadow you didn't consent to. And like any mother flesh or essence, she cannot watch in silence anymore. Her tears are not weakness, they are fuel. They carry the weight of truth, and truth has always been the most powerful light in dark places. When she showed up in this reading, it wasn't just to warn you. It was to awaken you. The symbolism in these 3 cards is intense, and it asks us to slow down. The 9 of Swords is the card of sleeplessness, guilt, anxiety, mental overload. It is not simply the mind racing, it is the mind trapped. Sometimes, we don't even realize how many of our thoughts aren't ours. They come from suggestions planted long ago. You're not enough, you always fail, you never get what you want. But who first whispered those thoughts into your inner space? Was it a mistake? A person? Or something darker, more insidious? The Queen of Swords reverse deepens that question. Upright, she is clarity. But reversed, she is manipulation disguised as intellect, power veiled as love. She does not attack with fists, she cuts with words and smiles. If you've ever been close to someone who always seemed to know better, who subtly undermined your choices, who gave with one hand and took with the other, this card brings their shadow into focus. And it asks you to stop blaming yourself for a spell you didn't know you were under. Then comes the Moon. The card of illusions. Of dreams that are not messages, but traps. Of emotions that feel like yours, but don't quite belong. The Moon doesn't lie, but it doesn't speak clearly, either. It invites you to feel your way through the fog. The real test is not whether you can see the truth with your eyes, but whether you can trust the compass inside when everything outside looks unstable. This particular combination is rare in any reading, and even more so in one marked by such a strong emotional presence. Astrologically, Leo is walking through a karmic intersection this month. The Sun, your ruling force, crosses paths with Chiron, the wounded healer. This alignment invites you to visit a wound, not to relive the pain, but to retrieve the power that was left behind. And just like a fire needs both heat and oxygen to rise, your healing needs both awareness and action. Even in numerology, the number 20 isn't just a measure of time. It reduces to 2, the number of mirrors. Duality. Reflection. The experience of seeing 2 faces on one person, one shown to the world, and one reserved for you. Maybe you felt it. Maybe you've been gaslit, second-guessed, or gently controlled in ways that made you question your own reality. That's not weakness, it's conditioning. But the moment you name it, you begin to unweave it. So I invite you now to pause and ask yourself, have there been moments when it felt like your path was blocked from behind? When the wind seemed to blow against you, even when you were doing everything right? Those aren't just coincidences. They are signals. They are energy patterns. And they are asking you now, will you see clearly this time? Let this be the beginning of your return. And if this resonates, take a moment to share in the comments what part of this message stirred something in you. The act of speaking it, even in writing, opens the next door. There are moments in life when everything seems fine on the surface, celebrations, milestones, family gatherings, and yet, deep within, something feels off. That feeling, subtle yet persistent, is often dismissed as stress, overthinking, or fatigue. But in some cases, what we're sensing is the invisible weight of a long-held imprint, an influence that quietly redirects our choices, drains our energy, and clouds our perception of what is truly ours. In the tarot spread we're exploring now 10 of Swords, 5 of Cups, and the Tower. This influence reveals itself clearly, not as a single event, but as a sustained pattern of inner disruption. The 10 of Swords is not just a card of betrayal. It is the culmination of many small cuts over time. It speaks to the kind of pain that accumulates slowly through small manipulations, broken trust, and silent disappointments until one day it becomes impossible to ignore. This card often appears when a person has given too much of themselves for too long, believing that suffering was just part of love, or that sacrifice was necessary to be accepted. In this context, it reflects a history of energetic sabotage, starting from a moment that should have been joyful like a wedding, a graduation, or a turning point in your personal path. Someone close, wearing the mask of kindness, sowed seeds of imbalance not by force, but by presence. And when that presence is charged with intention, even silence becomes a tool of control. The 5 of Cups carries a kind of grief that lingers in the heart without a name. It shows a person focused on the spilled cups, on what's been lost, broken, or left behind while unaware of what still remains upright. This is the emotional aftermath of having your energy diverted for years. You look around and wonder why the things you loved slipped through your fingers. Why your relationships felt hollow. Why your dreams didn't manifest the way you once believed they could. When someone interferes with your clarity, especially over time, it becomes easy to confuse their limitations with your own. But here's the truth: regret is not failure. It is the first crack in the illusion. And it's through that crack that light begins to enter. Then comes the Tower. Unlike the quiet grief of the 5 of Cups, the Tower is a moment of undeniable upheaval. It is the breakdown of the false, the collapse of what could no longer support your truth. Often feared, this card is actually a sacred form of release. When everything you thought was stable falls apart, what remains is what's real. And what's real cannot be destroyed. The Tower here signals that the influence, this long-standing manipulation, has reached its tipping point. You may already be feeling it: sudden changes, unexpected conflict, revelations that force you to reassess people or choices you've long tolerated. Though uncomfortable, these moments are not chaos. They are invitations. You are being shown what no longer holds integrity in your life, so you can finally choose differently. From a practical perspective, these energies often manifest through the body and mind. Chronic fatigue without medical cause, insomnia that comes in waves, and recurring dreams, especially those that repeat symbols or people, can all be signs that your nervous system is carrying more than your own emotions. One helpful way to begin clearing this is by reconnecting with your physical vessel. Try starting your mornings with warm water infused with fresh ginger and a pinch of sea salt. This helps the body process stagnant energy and improves mental clarity. In the evening, a short detox meditation focusing on exhaling the energy that doesn't belong to you can work like a daily cleansing ritual. Now, I invite you to reflect honestly. Is there a dream you've had for years that always returns, unchanged? Is there a persistent feeling that the life you're living doesn't entirely belong to you? These questions aren't meant to unsettle you. They're meant to anchor you in your own awareness. The first step to reclaiming your path is to recognize the moments when you felt disconnected from it. And if any of this resonates with you, if a memory, a face, or a moment surfaced while listening, share it in the comments below. Let your story be your declaration that the pattern ends with you. Change often arrives not with fanfare, but in quiet, almost imperceptible moments, the kind of moments where something inside you simply says, no more. That quiet shift is where real power begins. In this phase of the reading, we're no longer observing what's happened to you, we're stepping into what you can do about it. The cards have transitioned, and so must you. Where before we saw grief and confusion, now we are shown movement, clarity, and release. The Seven of Wands reverse tells a story of exhaustion, not from laziness, but from fighting for too long against forces that have no name. It's the kind of fatigue that doesn't just sit in the body but seeps into your thoughts, your dreams, your ability to trust your own instincts. This card is a signal that you've been defending yourself against something intangible: judgment, manipulation, false expectations, and it's worn you thin. But here's the truth hidden within its reversal: you don't need to win that battle anymore. You only need to walk away from it. There's a profound strength in recognizing when resistance is no longer growth, but a chain in disguise. That realization leads us directly to the Ace of Swords, a card of piercing clarity. This is the sword that cuts illusion, that severs what no longer serves, that defines your boundary not by force, but by truth. It doesn't ask for a dramatic confrontation, it invites a quiet but unwavering decision. One simple, bold sentence: "This is not mine." That thought alone has the potential to unravel years of energetic entanglement. This sword is not a weapon in the traditional sense, it's a reminder of your ability to name what's real, and to release what isn't. Then comes the Eight of Cups, the act of departure. This card does not represent defeat, it represents wisdom. It appears when someone recognizes that staying, enduring, and trying to fix what was never theirs to hold is no longer a path of compassion but of harm. The figure in this card walks away from what's familiar not because they are giving up, but because they are finally choosing alignment over attachment. And that's the thread that binds this moment: the power to choose differently. Not because someone told you to, not because a card suggested it, but because your inner wisdom has finally been heard. Stepping out of a harmful pattern often doesn't look dramatic. It can be as simple as writing down the name of someone who no longer belongs in your energy field and burning that paper with a single, mindful breath. It can be choosing a lighter color to wear to bed, not for magic, but as a signal to your subconscious that you are ready to let the night be gentle again. It can be eating clean, simple foods for 3 days, not as punishment, but as an offering to your own clarity. The point is not to escape, but to realign. In teachings that emphasize mindfulness and liberation, there is a simple yet powerful truth: freedom does not come from changing the world, it comes from no longer being bound by it. You can't stop the storm from forming, but you can stop standing in the rain. That's the choice you're being offered now. And if you're feeling that quiet pull in your gut, that subtle yes, that needs no explanation, trust it. Write it. Declare it. Say in the comments, "I choose to walk away from the dark." Let that be the first step that marks the end of the old cycle and the beginning of the real you. There is a moment in every journey when, after walking through confusion, doubt, and heaviness, we encounter a different kind of silence, one that doesn't isolate, but comforts. In this part of the reading, that silence arrives through the cards like a gentle hand on the shoulder. The Empress, the Star, the Sun, and the Hierophant form a sacred quartet, offering not only reassurance but renewal. Where before we saw disruption and manipulation, now we're offered clarity, warmth, and guidance. It's not just that something harmful is ending, it's that something deeply protective has always been present, and now, you're finally able to feel it. The Empress represents the force of nurturing, not sentimentality, but deep-rooted care. She embodies the essence of unconditional love, a presence that protects not by force but by presence itself. In a world that often confuses love with control, the Empress reminds us that real love liberates. If the pain of the past came from someone claiming to care while secretly harming you, this card offers the contrast. It says, true protection never demands obedience. It creates safety in which you can grow freely. This maternal energy isn't just symbolic. It's the foundation of your healing. Just as the earth holds a seed without needing to fix it, so does this energy hold you, not because you're broken, but because you are growing. The star follows like a breath of clean air after a storm. It doesn't promise immediate answers, it simply offers direction. The light in the sky doesn't erase the night, but it makes the path visible. In times of emotional depletion, this card says, you don't need to be whole to move forward, you only need to believe that wholeness is possible. That's the kind of faith that has no object. It's not blind, it's centered. And like a quiet lake, it reflects back what is already inside you. The sun is a gift. After all that has been hidden, obscured, or distorted, this card arrives like morning. It reminds you that joy is not a luxury reserved for the lucky, it is your birthright. But to feel it again, you must allow it. Many people, after years of betrayal or manipulation, unconsciously resist happiness out of fear that it will be taken away. The sun asks you to surrender that not with naivety, but with courage. Its warmth doesn't erase your history, it simply makes the present more real than the past. Finally, the Hierophant grounds all this light in something steady. He is not a preacher, but a bridge. A symbol of tradition, structure, and wisdom that transcends personal opinion. He encourages you to root your transformation in practice, not just in inspiration. Whether it's through journaling, meditation, breath work, or simply sitting in silence before your day begins, this card invites you to make space for the sacred in your routine. Not to perform, but to remember. Wisdom does not have to be loud, it only needs to be consistent. If you felt a quiet sense of calm during this part of the reading, it's not your imagination. That calm is the recognition that something is holding you now, gently, but firmly. You don't need to understand how. You don't need to explain it to anyone. What matters is that it's here, and it's real. Sometimes, all that's required for healing to begin is for one part of you to stop bracing and simply exhale. Place a protective symbol on your desk, not as a superstition, but as a reminder that you are allowed to feel safe again. Begin your day with sound that soothes instead of distracts. Choose what uplifts rather than what numbs. And if something in your heart softened just now, if even a small part of you feels less alone, say so. Leave a comment, I feel the warmth. I am being held. Let that be your return to trust. When the cycle of resistance has been broken and the weight of the past begins to lift, there is often a strange kind of stillness that follows. Not silence, exactly, but a quiet space inside where you can finally breathe without bracing. That's what this moment represents. The cards drawn here: the World, the Ten of Pentacles, the Ace of Cups, and the Six of Wands don't just speak of external blessings. They reflect an inner readiness. A state in which you're no longer waiting for life to change you, but are now ready to meet life on your own terms. The World card arrives when a major life cycle has come full circle. It marks not just an ending, but an integration. You've walked through fire, doubt, heartbreak, and confusion, and yet, here you are. More whole than you may realize. What's powerful about this card is that it doesn't reward effort in the traditional sense. It rewards presence. It asks, are you ready to live as someone who is no longer driven by fear? Not because fear disappeared, but because it no longer leads. This kind of evolution can't be forced. It only comes when the mind and the heart have made peace, even in the absence of all the answers. The Ten of Pentacles reminds us that stability isn't just about money, it's about legacy. It's about creating something that lasts beyond our immediate needs. This card is an invitation to step into a reality where what you build, what you share, and what you nurture is no longer based on survival but on joy, value, and connection. For some, this will mean deepening family roots or building a home that feels truly safe. For others, it may be launching a new career or community that reflects who they've become. Whatever it is, the foundation is already being formed beneath your feet. What once felt far away is now within reach, not because life became easier, but because you became clearer. The Ace of Cups is the heart's reopening. After long periods of disappointment or emotional depletion, this card comes like spring after a harsh winter. It speaks of new beginnings in love, but also a return to self-affection. It doesn't promise a perfect partner or a fixed relationship, it simply offers the energy of emotional renewal. A gentle overflow. If you felt closed off or numb, this card reminds you that your heart was never broken, it was only protecting itself. And now, it's beginning to trust again. The softening you feel isn't weakness, it's healing in motion. And the Six of Wands? That's the recognition of your journey. It's the applause you didn't ask for but deeply deserve. Sometimes, it comes from the outside, new connections, opportunities, or even words of affirmation. But more often, it comes from within. A sense of quiet pride. A realization that you faced what most people avoid, and you made it through with integrity. This isn't ego, it's alignment. And it shows. So now, in this part of your path, you're being called not just to receive, but to create. To pick back up what you left behind, not because you failed, but because now you are finally ready. Write down the 10 things you once let go of, not out of shame, but as a tribute to the version of you that survived. Then choose 3 of them to begin again. One small step is enough. The rest will follow. If this part of your journey feels like a door opening, let yourself step through it. And tell me, from that place of new freedom, what will you do first? Leave a comment to mark this moment, not just for yourself, but for others who are still searching. Your courage is a light. Let it shine. If you're still here at this moment, it means your soul has already heard the call. Not a random whisper, but a message wrapped in tears from the other side of the veil, from a mother who's been trying to protect you all along. What you felt for the past 20 years, those strange setbacks, the invisible heaviness, the sense that someone or something was always holding you back, was not just your imagination. It wasn't bad luck, or weakness, or failure. It was a silent thread of manipulation, woven carefully by someone who never wanted to see you thrive. But here's the truth, that thread no longer holds power unless you allow it to. The very moment you became aware of the influence was the moment it began to lose control. Awareness is your sword. And now, you get to decide what to do with it. Will you keep dragging the weight of someone else's spell through your future? Or will you let it fall, once and for all? You are not broken. You were never broken. You've simply been walking through a storm that wasn't yours to carry. And now, the clouds are parting not because someone saved you but because you turned toward the light. The light of truth. Of clarity. Of self-respect. This is the time to reclaim what was taken, your joy, your love, your voice. Your ability to trust your own choices again. The moment you say no to control, manipulation, and energetic theft is the moment the universe says yes to you. Yes to new relationships. Yes to restored health. Yes to financial flow. Yes to inner peace. So I invite I encourage you to make it real with your words. Comment below, I choose the light. I choose my freedom. Say it like a promise to yourself and a declaration to the world. Let this moment become your turning point. If this message reached something deep inside you, if it felt like it was meant just for you, then honor it. Like this video to thank the mother energy that's been watching over you. And subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness so that you never miss another message from the universe. You're not alone in this journey. And you never were. You deserve a life that is not controlled by fear, curses, or someone else's darkness. You deserve to live freely, fully, and in your own radiant truth. And the most powerful thing is no one, not even a witch, gets to decide your destiny. Only you do. So what will your first step toward freedom look like? What will you do differently now that you know? I'm listening. We all are. Tell your story and begin again.